Welcome to NEXTGames Limbus series. Now, this will be the second episode introducing you to this changed event, and will build upon what we went over in episode 1. So if you haven't seen that yet, be sure to watch that episode first to get a good foundation of what's involved in this changed event. Now in the last episode, I shared my experience on Temenos. Today, I'll be going over Apollyon and some new information that has been learned since last week's video. First, I didn't mention it last episode, but you will see a home point crystal next to the 3 entrances to Limbus. So if you haven't gotten those yet, be sure to click on them next time you run by to make your trip to Limbus shorter in the future. Now Apollyon works very similar to the way Temenos did, in regards to killing enemies to fear the meter in the upper left corner of the screen so that you can get the key item and progress to the next floor. Now when I was soloing, I needed to kill 5 enemies per floor in Apollyon to get this key item, of which there are 18 of these key items in Apollyon divided into 4 separate zones: northwest, southwest, northeast, and southeast. Now the enemies that are on each floor vary, but each floor has enemies that are relatively easy to pull and defeat to get that key item. Now unlike Temenos, this area is much more spread out with only a few easy to avoid true sight mobs involved, so there is much less need to train enemies to the porter if you happen to catch some aggro midway through the zone. So overall, I would say this is going to make farming units for your artifact armor easier than Relic from Temenos. Now, this is further made true by the shimmering question marks I mentioned in the last video. While they are rarely seen in Temenos, they are seen quite frequently in Apollyon, granting opportunities for an easy 3,000 units whenever you find one. Now speaking of those marks, some more information has been discussed and revealed in the last week, and it now seems that after a period of time since the last shimmering marks disappeared, a random enemy somewhere in Apollyon will start to check as impossible to gauge. Now once he does, someone needs to kill him, and once it's killed, the shimmering effect is going to appear somewhere on that floor and stay there for a period of time, usually reported as many hours. Once it disappears, then the timer for the enemy to spawn it starts again. Keep in mind that this is a very loose understanding of the way it works, and it's really just starting to be figured out, so while the basics of how you can get it to spawn may be here, the details of it will become more clear over the coming weeks. Now people are also suspecting that the reason that this is not often seen in Temenos is because so many enemies are trained to the porter or killed upon it, which it's suspected will either reset the timer or stop the shimmering effect from appearing altogether. Now this will hopefully be addressed in next month's update. For this week, I also tried killing enemies set at level 124 and 130 as opposed to the 119 from last week, and I found that killing enemies at a maximum of 130 is really the way to go, even if you're solo, if you can manage it. Even at that level of 130, I managed to kill all 5 enemies needed for the key item in just about 5 to 7 minutes on each floor. But I was now getting far more exemplar points at just over 300 per kill at my present master level of 32, and instead of getting 84 units per floor, as I was getting when the level was set to 119, I was now getting 306 units per floor with it set to 130. So if you can manage it, I definitely recommend trying this. I've also noticed a lot of soloers not using any trust when in here. Now I figured maybe I was missing something, so I tried a floor without trust, and all it really did was slow me down. It didn't give me any more exemplar points or units, and it didn't fill my bar any faster. So if anyone can tell me why so many soloers are taking on this event without any trust, please share it down there in the comments. I also didn't point out last week that after you open a chest in either Apollyon or Temenos for the first time, all times after that in each zone will have the chance to grant you a special increased support effect. Now in Temenos, this will increase all of your forms of accuracy, and in Apollyon, it will increase all of your base stats. There is also a Vital Grace buff that increases your hit points and reduces the amount of exemplar points lost upon death. Now while these aren't really needed for the current content, I'm sure they will become more helpful when things like bosses are released here in the future. Now as usual, once acquiring all 18 key items in Apollyon, head over to the top floor of one of the 4 main zones to open a chest and get either 3,000 or 5,000 units and a possible support effect increase. Now the process will then repeat, and this is basically all that's involved with this event at this time. I also want to say that in Apollyon I noticed some enemies were definitely much weaker to my 2-step skill chain with dual magic burst strategy that I used last week heavily than others were. So when you're cutting your way through these zones, make sure you're trying a variety of mob types your first time there to see which your particular setup will cut through most efficiently. That's about all I have to share in this episode. Enjoy the new event over the coming weeks, and I'll be sure to report back in another episode when there is more notable additions to this event. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.